Welcome to week 7, everybody. I wanted to take a few minutes to kind of recap a little bit about last week. The topic was related to advocacy. I really appreciated the dialogue related to that, especially the dialogue related to the ethical dilemmas that are often inherent in advocacy work. You all brought up some really great points related to, those ethical dilemmas and limited resources, and how do you go about advocacy work when there are limited resources. I appreciated the dialogue about that. And then also the discussion relating to balancing those conflicting or sometimes conflicting ideas around what should be advocating for, what should be advocated for. So, that you as a worker or you as being a part of a larger agency may have a very different vision of what kind of advocacy work needs to be done related to an individual or a group of people. That may look very different than what that individual client or family or larger group kind of sees for themselves. And I appreciated the dialogue, especially about when you're working with people and groups that are different than your own, than your own. Just to recap, the 5 tasks of advocacy from the structural point of view were to first identify who the problem affects, next to identify the issues related to that problem, moving forward then to deconstruct the problem, and then fourth, in terms of moving forward with advocacy, would be advising and gaining consent from the group or individuals that you are working with to actually move forward with advocacy. And then the last part would be related to the intervention process. So this week we're going to be continuing on with the text and looking at group work. We've been focusing a lot related to group work in your lab, and now we're going to be spending some time this week looking at it from a structural point of view. You'll notice that in lab this week I made it a little bit lighter than normal, and that's to really give you time to start focusing on your own groups that you're going to be facilitating here very, very shortly. So I wanted to just do a very brief recap on group work as we move forward with this week's chapter and with your own work. And I also, though, wanted to comment on how much I appreciated your group theory papers. And I hope that that was helpful to all of you in terms of actually applying the theoretical concepts that we've been learning to practice. And I'm hoping that will aid you as you move forward in facilitating your own groups. As always, if you have any questions about, this next assignment and you need some guidance or help with that, please feel free to contact me either via email or phone. So let's move forward reviewing group work. So group work review. So really group work and the process of using that as a structure for facilitating change with people really begins with this idea that human beings are strongly dependent on interactions with one another. And so within that, it can be really, it can give the people participating in the group as well as the worker the opportunity to use those interactions to move forward. So from a structural point of view, as your text points out, it urges workers to consider more than a one-by-one approach to situations, and that by working with individuals in their human context, along with others who are, going through similar things, that can be very helpful. So, for instance, a grief group with hospice or something of that nature. The other, kind of positive of group work is that you really get more bang for your buck. Last week we were really talking a lot about limited resources and how you manage that as a social worker. And group work really gives social workers an opportunity to serve more people in a shorter amount of time. If you're seeing individuals, for even, let's just say, a half hour or an hour, you can't see as many people in a day as if you're facilitating a group or several groups. So that's another one of the benefits. So many social service agencies use group work. The group worker uses their knowledge of group work organizations and functions to impact the individuals within the group context. So in that way, it's really a calculated thing. And I'm hoping that the videos, I know they're really dated, but will be helpful to everybody this week in terms of looking at that within a context. The individual remains the focus of concern and the group the vehicle of growth and change. So even though, there's the focus on the group aspect of things, it still remains the focus that the individuals within the group, the group format really provides that opportunity for growth and change. And the ultimate goal is really the enhancement of social functioning through the use of the group, and is the primary aim of group work. Let's just review types of groups. So we have support groups, we have social groups, we have therapy groups, and we have advocacy groups. And all of you, within your group theory papers, many of you touched on these different types of groups. So this should be pretty familiar to you. Let's look at group work interactions. So it's really important to note that it's really a multidimensional interactions and relationships when you're working in the group work context. So you can look at that as the group worker with members of the group. That's one set of relationships and interactions. Also, the members with one another. And something that we often don't think about is how relationships of non-members with members also impact the group. So look at structuring the group. So, and creating group rules, which, is always, of course, the beginning stage of group work. So that it's a group that makes its own rules is more likely to abide by them and apply sanctions as needed to reinforce them. Next, individual beliefs and values should be considered in relation to group rules, and that rules should be few in number and include only those deemed essential to achieve the purpose of the group. And that part of your job as a group facilitator or group worker is that some members may attempt to impose inappropriate rules on the group. And part of your facilitation role might be to help navigate that and help other members speak of that, and that ultimately for you to speak up about that. Just quickly reviewing stages of groups. So the beginning is when the group worker sets the stage. The worker takes the time to identify the purpose of the group. People clearly commit to the goals and procedures, so to speak, the guidelines of the group. And members need to know what they can expect from the worker. This is where you set the context and the stage. It's where you might talk about confidentiality, where you might talk about the limits of confidentiality in terms of mandated reporting and things of that nature. And this stage is characterized as a time to convene, to organize, and to set a plan. And members are likely at this stage to remain distant or removed until they've had time to develop relationships. But as you know, in some of the other readings we've been doing related to group work, that might not always be the case. All groups are unique and can take on a life of their own. So let's look at the middle stage. Almost all of the groups, the bulk of the work will occur during this stage, and that relationships are strengthened as a group so that the tasks can be worked on. This is where, you'll see more intimacy come to be, more transparency, more openness. Problem solving is a term often used to describe this stage. And group leaders tend to become less involved as group members become more comfortable with one another and hopefully more interactive with one another. The leader may remind the group of their goals and rules, and also I don't like that I chose the word confront here, but that it really is a time when the group facilitator might use the relationships within the context of the group to move through things and to work towards the overall purpose of the group. And then finally, the end stage is marked by the accomplishment of the goals of the group, production of results, and the evaluation of the group works. It's really a time of reflection. You talk about, you move towards the preparation for termination and what should begin. And again, that should begin really with the first session, that you really talk about the context of that it's a limited time that everybody's going to be meeting together. And then the worker will help members deal with their feelings associated with termination of the group. And we've talked about this in other termination as a challenge for the people that we're serving, and also sometimes as a worker it can be a challenge for us. So being really clear about that. And then to help participants plan on ways to maintain and generalize the gains each member has made. So that may or may not be, helping members maintain relationships and supports with one another, depending on the context of the group. So I hope this was helpful for everybody. Again, please feel free to contact me if you have any questions or concerns or need clarity about anything. I look forward to a rich discussion this week on our forum, and take care.